Hello, everybody.
Hello, and welcome to, what is it, episode 7?
Episode 7, yes, of our little view of the world.
Yeah,
The world.
well, motorsport world.
Yeah. There's a few
Not
cars
the
and a bit of driving
world.
thrown in, but most, a lot of it's motorsport.
Yeah.
It kind of shows you where we come from, really, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We're unfortunately starting off with a bit of sad news, aren't we? Really, this
Yeah,
week?
a bit of a dampener to start with. Couple of legends of motorsport have left us this week.
Yeah.
The first one being Murray Walker.
Yeah.
So certainly people of a certain age was his voice was the sound of motorsport, really. You know, he was Mr. Motor Racing. In the same way that you got people who were the voice of snooker and all the rest of it. He was the motor racing man.
Oh, absolutely.
He sounded like a 500cc two-stroke.
Well, as a child, what I loved about him, and I honestly don't think we've had this since with a commentator in motorsport. Well, motorsport, that's not fair because the MotoGP guys are really good, but is that kind of real flare of excitement and getting so excited that almost makes mistakes, tongue-tied, all that kind
gets
of...
so into it.
Gets that passionate about it. But I love that. I really love that kind of passion behind it, which I think, I don't know, it's almost, it sounds awful, but there's too many racing drivers now as commentators.
Yeah, Sky F1 is basically a load of
retired
F1 drivers. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I think it's great to get that side.
And Brundle's brilliant.
Yeah, but I do honestly think you still need people that are professional commentators that are really good at presenting and doing that side of it. And I just think Murray Walker was brilliant at that. And gosh, growing up for me, I mean, it was very strange when he retired, and it took a long time to adjust, actually.
But even things like he used to do the touring car before it was on live, and you'd get the sort of half-hour segment. You know, that made those programs was him talking like his trousers are on fire. And brilliant.
What would you say your favourite Murray Walker moment would be?
That's a good question. Probably when Damon won the World Championship in '96 and he had to stop talking. That's perhaps everybody's.
Well, I think they've actually used that on the news a lot, haven't they? When he did unfortunately pass away.
There was a great one with back in the day with the touring cars when I can't remember, it was Cleland and Soper, and Soper gave Cleland the bird. And Murray Walker said, "He's telling you I'm coming through to be first." That's clearly not what he was doing at all.
But that's what, very, very special man. I mean, he got to a good age. What was it, 97?
He's an incredible man because he had a full-time career in advertising.
Which I have to admit, I didn't know that.
Yeah, commentating on F1 was kind of a hobby.
Yeah.
Amazing, really. And a lot of it, I remember him talking, I read his book years ago, that him and James Hunt were quite often in a studio in London, and they'd be talking about the race, and they'd say things like, "We can't see from our commentary position," basically because they were in London, not Brazil, because there was no budget.
I didn't think they got on that well.
Well, they don't think they did at first because they're very, very different characters. James was a playboy. Murray Walker was a hard worker.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, there's classic stories about James Hunt, getting off the point a little bit, of he disappearing testing one day, and they went and found him when he was asleep in the car. He's pulled over and gone to sleep because he couldn't see the point of it.
Really?
Pounding around for no reason. Yeah. Funny, really.
Yeah, completely different. But yeah, so very, very sad. Obviously news and. And unfortunately, then not only a few days later, Sabina Smith, who's obviously well known as
which is almost
the ring.
I don't want to say
driver.
Worse, but she was 51. Murray was 97.
Yeah, I think it's never nice, is it?
No.
For any family to lose somebody at any age, but of course, when they're younger, you can't help but think it's too soon. And 51 is no age.
No.
I have to admit, I didn't realise she had such severe cancer.
No, because she'd announced she was ill, hadn't she? But
it's just
I don't think anybody realised it was as bad as it was.
Well, no, because she was working and racing right up to the end. So I think that's the thing.
Well, we talked on here, didn't we, about Tandy's driving for her team for Cadelli. We mentioned that a couple of weeks ago.
Absolutely. So big shock. I mean, she really kind of became massive over here in the UK when she was on Top Gear.
Yes. Because Clarkson was trying to get under 10 minutes in a Jag, and she said she could do that in a van.
And she did. She beat him. Yeah. So and that really kind of really catapulted her career, didn't
it did, yeah.
She got a lot of works drives after that. She's done an awful lot of stuff. She's the only woman to win the Nürburgring 24 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
There's actually some great footage of her. I shared it, didn't I, on my social media stuff.
Yeah.
Of her starting quite far back. I guess she didn't qualify the car.
No.
And the first
one of the
lap,
gentlemen must have qualified the car for.
The first lap was unbelievable.
Yeah.
How many cars she
just made
overtakes.
everybody look very average.
Well, it looked like she was in a much faster car. She
Yeah.
wasn't.
No,
It
no.
looked like it. So absolutely would recommend going and seeing that. But yeah, just really, again, just really awful news. That's for sure.
Terrible.
But
yeah.
but anyway, let's move on to something a bit
more
positive.
Yeah,
for
more not
now.
interesting. That's right. I didn't mean to say that. But more upbeat, perhaps.
Yes. So
Depending on which team you're with, clearly.
Yeah, so the world of motorsport. So we've had the F1 testing at Bahrain, haven't
Yes.
we? So we watched 3 days of
Yes.
that because we're very sad.
Yes, and I don't think you're ever getting the full picture. That's the thing. With
No.
it. If that was the picture, then brilliant.
Yeah.
But they've had 2 weeks to sort the issues
Yeah.
out, because essentially Mercedes were nowhere, which we'll come to in a minute.
Yeah, there's been some big changes, haven't there? So they've reduced the aero dynamics by 10%?
10%, so they say.
At the rear.
But they're going quicker than they.
Well,
they're already
of
going
course.
quicker than they were.
Of course, every team has tried to draw that back one way or another, haven't they? So that's one thing. They've all got different ideas on that, and there's also the high rake and low rake cars as well. So there seems to be a divide on that. So Aston Martin, Mercedes are classed as low rake cars. So it just means the ride height is lower, effectively.
At the rear, at the front. Sorry. So it's on a high rake car. It's like the back end's jacked up.
Yes, correct. It's actually something Vettel's been struggling with, because he drove the Red Bull and the Ferrari, which were both high rate cars, and now the Aston Martin's a low rate car.
Yeah.
So he's finding that, and the power unit and the steering unit, all of that he's struggling with. He's finding the steering really different to the cars he's driven before and stuff. So it's quite interesting, because there's quite a lot of different theories.
And you would think an F1 car must be an F1 car, but clearly that isn't the case.
Exactly. Just differences. So McLaren have tried to sort of get round the whole 10% thing with a different rear diffuser.
Yeah, they're the only people who've come up with that idea, aren't they?
Yeah, so they've tried to go with something completely different. Found a little bit of a loophole, really. I mean, I got to admit, I don't understand the ins and outs of exactly everything they've done with the rear diffuser. Being completely honest,
it's something to do with changing the
the
sizes of the kind of spikes in the diffuser.
Yeah,
and they found a loophole to show that it's one continual curve, so they've made them bigger. It's something along those lines.
Yeah, and
but essentially
they've the gearbox, doesn't it?
Yes, and you can see from the testing how much more nailed the McLaren looked.
Oh yeah, I mean the McLaren looked amazing. To be honest, I bet Ricardo was over the moon.
Happy. Yeah, quite happy with that.
Because
the Ferrari wasn't going so well, which is where science has gone.
Yeah, well, 2 morning tests, and he was fastest, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So in the morning sessions. So yeah, really. I mean, I really hope they are on it. Because I'd love to see McLaren back up there. That would mean a lot to me.
Well, it seems that Red Bull were fast, weren't they? They were.
Well, Max in particular, but Perez actually.
He was going well.
He's
got to adapt himself to the car. It's going to take a while to get to that, because they say it's less edgy, but it still looked fairly edgy to me.
But Perez actually looked like he started to find his feet with it.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
The great thing for Perez though is he's been in the sport now a long time. He's been in F1 a long time, so I think he's going to hopefully adapt more to the team than the young rookies that are thrown into this top role. So it'll be really interesting to see how he fares, I think, against Max. Girls see the only person so far that's really rivaled Max is Ricardo, really. So it'll be really interesting to see how that pans out as it goes on. But yeah, they look really, really strong, But
interestingly, he said in an interview this week that Perez, that he got thrown off the Red Bull. Well, he didn't even get as far as getting on it. He went and did a test in Formula 3 about 2006, 2007, and the car didn't fit him, so he was slow, and then they sent him home. But like you were saying then, that may have done him a favour.
Oh, absolutely, because I think
going to Red Bull with 10 years experience is
absolutely,
rather than going in as a rookie, which doesn't seem to work.
sure the Red Bull Academy is the most attractive academy to go to.
No, well, Bottas turned it down.
Wrong.
I remember Bottas turning it down.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's still, gosh, it's better than nothing. That's for sure. But I think it's become too cutthroat. And I know in any sport it always is at the top, right? But it seems worse, and they're not nurturing these young drivers because they're getting younger and younger all the time. That's the other thing. If you think like when Damon Hill debuted, he was in his 30s. There are people on their way out in their 30s now. So they're incredibly young people coming into this sport, and I think they need some nurturing to get
but it seems to
the
work,
best out of them.
Because the Alpha Tauri, the drivers seem to flourish there.
Absolutely.
It's when they move to the big team that it all goes pear-shaped.
Because I think there's so much more pressure, and you've got far more media attention, all of that, and
you have
the
to get
team,
results now, otherwise you're out.
The team are very around Max. Max is very special, but Max has also got that advantage of his dad being a Formula One driver and being there every step of the way to mould him, really. I mean, even his mother was a racing driver, so he's had great backing in that sense. And I think it's really hard for these other drivers to come in, especially now Max is settled in the team. He's very much team lead, he's settled. That's very hard for these rookie drivers to come in and compete against.
Yeah,
so
it is.
I think with Perez he's got a far better chance. I think he's very strong-minded, he's very good at getting the team around him.
They've got him in for Sunday, haven't they, really?
Yeah, because he's a great racer.
Strong in races, yeah.
So it'd be great to see what happens. Well, they need that because they kind of lost out, unfortunately, with Albon. When things went wrong with Max, Albon wasn't there to pick up the pieces.
That's right.
Whereas if you think of Hamilton and Bottas more or less is always there to pick up the pieces if Hamilton
and they can change the strategy, because where was it they was I think it was Hungary where they couldn't pit Max because there was nobody to back him up, where Hamilton could get a pity because they knew that Max would come out behind Bottas, and they hadn't got that other way around. It was Gasly at the time. Gasly was too far back.
And look at Gasly now; he's absolutely on fire.
So AlphaTauri do a good job.
They obviously the culture in that team is better.
Yeah.
I think somebody said the average age in that team.
The whole team's like 30 or something.
35 or something.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe, I know that sounds mad, but maybe that is it culturally.
It's a young team.
Yeah, and whether that helps these young drivers, I don't know. But I feel really sad for Albon because actually, listening to people like Russell and others say he was the man to fear of most. And,
in their generation.
Yeah, and coming up through the ranks, I just feel like he's lost his chance before it really began. And I think he was thrown in to the top team too early, and too much negative attention because there's some background with his mum and stuff, and that was awful seeing all that on the media. And I think it's just he's a young lad and he doesn't come from money, and I think it was a bit much, really. So he's gone off and done DTM anyway, hasn't he? So hopefully
he's the reserve driver, I think, isn't he?
Yeah. So let's see what happens there. And then of course Alonso's back, which for me is the best thing in the world.
Well, they seem to design a really ugly car. When you look at it from the front, it's really bulbous, but it seems to be going well.
Alonso was looking quick because
it was stable and it did lots of laps and all that kind of stuff.
Well, he's obviously again very experienced, and he knows he just needs to get out and pound round really to get back into it. Because you think he's had 2 years out of the sport, but there was out of Formula One. But there was no inkling of an idea that would be, he looked on fire straight away in that car. He didn't look foreign with it or anything. I mean, he was very, very quick, even on the hard tyres and stuff, wasn't he? So, and actually, interestingly, reading about the team, they were saying the thing. Fernando's kind of determination,
pushiness,
pushiness, that kind of behaviour is actually really helping the team. It's giving them direction. The only thing is, I think, is he could end up being the team boss himself if you don't manage that. Whether that's a good or bad thing, I don't know. But but it's interesting what they're saying so far. Well, he's got a huge amount of experience and he knows how to get a car to
Well, he knows how to win. He knows how to develop a car. You know.
Yeah, so he knows all of that. So yeah, I think that'll be. I mean, for me, I know it's a bit of a controversial subject because there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, you know, there's so many young drivers that deserve a seat," which I'm sure is very, very true. But Alonso is incredibly special.
Yeah, how many young drivers are there of his calibre?
Absolutely, and you only need to speak to anybody in the sport high up in F1, and they'll all tell you Alonso is one of the best drivers of all time.
Yeah.
Okay, he's perhaps too political and he's lost championships because he wasn't in the right car, that kind of thing. But his raw pace and ability is really special. So I'm excited to see that really. And then Tsunoda's obviously had his debut in the car as well.
So he's done something like 100 races. This is a bit like Kimi. Because Kimi did hardly any races, did he, before he got to Formula 1? He's done something like 100 races, Tsunoda, since 2016 or 17 or something. He's not been driving cars very long, basically. Now he's in F1.
Yeah.
But he did a stellar job in the testing.
Yeah,
There's some doubt over something about the DRS, opening the DRS early, but even so, you know, the car was...
I don't know. Well, basically he was, second in the... times
to Max.
To Max Verstappen, and of course on his debut in a car that hasn't been that quick in the past, that kind of thing. And there was a few pictures, wasn't there, going around online that he was opening the DRS too early, basically. Which I don't know, but looking, he was doing lap after lap quick. So for me, I'm not sure that's even. We'll much see. Of an argument, but we'll see. And this is the thing, you never really know in testing what you're looking at or what they're doing.
No.
And of course we should mention Mercedes really, shouldn't we? Because
the car looked dreadful.
And I mean, I
see
think
Lewis constantly going off the road.
Yeah, which you just don't see.
Yes, you don't see that.
I mean he had...
He was understeering off, he was just going off everywhere.
He had a big spin and stopped the session, didn't he? And then he actually had another spin later on, but it didn't stop the session because he didn't get beached in the gravel.
No.
But and both drivers were saying that it's just very unpredictable and they're really struggling with the rear of the car. And you could see that because actually...
Well, he barely turned, did he? And it was round.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on the brakes, it was just whipping round. I think, though, they've got the resources, and this is a bit which is almost a bit of a shame, that once you've done your test in the car, it should be right. You can't touch it now. But obviously they can. And I think they'll just take the ideas of McLaren and the others. And
throw 50 million at it.
Yeah, or change it to a high-rate car now. Because it seems to be the high-rate cars are doing better.
Well, that's obviously a new
thing. Than the low-rate cars.
Because Red Bull started all that, didn't they?
And it's all to do with, obviously, you losing this downforce on the rear floor. So... and it seems there's two theories with it, and it seems to be it's affecting at the moment the low rate cars more.
Because the other team that struggled were Aston, which of course is essentially a Mercedes.
Absolutely.
With the same issue, gearbox issues, and then it just not.
Yeah.
He struggled with it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Vettel was
not
saying.
Happy with it, I don't think.
No, I mean he was quite matter of fact and said there's a lots to. He was saying all sorts of things like the pedals feel different, the seats different, the environment in the car, then it's the team. He said it all just takes time to settle in properly. He said they're all small things, but they add up. And then I think his biggest problem was the steering. He was just struggling with the steering unit being, what is it, that's Mercedes as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And finding that massively different to the Ferrari. So so a bit of a adaptation, but I think he's a world-class driver, and he'll
work it out.
I think he'll really shine at Aston, because once he can be number one effectively, and I know obviously with Aston who's involved with that is Stroll, but he will be quick, won't he?
Yes.
Against Stroll, I would have thought, and I think he will just get stronger and stronger off the back of that. Really do. So that'd be interesting to see him come back, really. So that's not this weekend but the following weekend, isn't it? So we're going to do a preview. This weekend,
so we'll do a proper preview of that.
Yeah, we'll do a proper preview.
I mean, the thing with it is, it looks as though it's all tightened up, which is what we wanted. That's what rule stability tends to give you, because when you get this rule change, the bigger teams can throw more money at it. When it's been around for a few years, everybody managed to close the gap up. So hopefully,
the only thing that worries me,
fingers crossed and everything else. Mercedes aren't going to disappear off into the sunset.
We'll see. I mean,
They've had 2 weeks to sort the problem.
Well,
out,
that's the
haven't they?
thing. I just think they've got so many resources. You
Well,
do
they can't
what
spend
they
the money
can.
that they were because of the budget cap.
Yeah, but I bet they find ways.
Yeah.
I bet they do.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's see. So we'll do a proper preview on it next week. As we'll know more by then. So the other big talking point in motorsport is it's the 12-hour Sebring this weekend, isn't it?
Next
so
big IMSA race. Yeah.
It's already started. Qualifying is today, isn't
yes,
it?
Yeah.
And happening. So yeah, really, really interesting actually. So
old school track.
Yeah,
it's a bit like Alton Park.
Yeah, no, it
bumpy and narrow.
So it started in 1952.
Yes.
So it's its 69th year.
69th running of it. Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting.
And it's an old airfield, isn't it?
It is.
They deliberately have never changed the surface.
Yeah. It's actually very narrow, very bumpy. It's very
No
hard
runoff.
on the cars.
Yeah.
So it's very old school. Once you're on the curb, if you go beyond it, you're on the grass. It's really.
And there's the wall.
And but I kind of like that, and I think the drivers like that.
Yeah, completely.
I mean, there's the extra challenge because it's so bumpy. It's very hard on the
You've got to manage
suspension.
the car, haven't you?
As I know, one of the Porsche teams last year, after 3 hours in, one of the shocks broke, and they had to nurse it for the rest of the race.
Yeah, they won the race, didn't they?
Yeah, they did somehow, because I think they got the amateur bit out the way, and then the pros just took it over, and obviously knew how to manage. But
get the
round
bodies paid
Sebring,
for it to stand out the back.
Yeah, yeah. So it should be really exciting, actually. So I'm really looking forward to watching it this weekend, because I just feel the whole sports car scene's really getting a bigger scene again now.
And you think the Daytona 24 hours was close, so they can push harder because it's only 12 hours rather than 24.
We've got, if we think
some strong driver lineups.
Oh, absolutely. Ganassi. Obviously, we've got Magnussen, who's moved over from Formula One.
Yeah.
Who had a really, really good debut.
Yes.
Didn't he? So it'd be really interesting to see kind of what he does this time around. You've got Dixon and Van der Zandt and you know, so really strong lineup in that.
As we said before, Dixon's as good as anybody in the world, So
in
a sports car with Magnussen.
Yeah, because how many IndyCar championships
is it 5 or 6? I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and gosh, every IndyCar race I've watched, you never know who's going to win
No,
it.
you don't.
So to get that many championships, it's not like Formula One where you get kind of eras of certain teams having a big advantage.
No.
It's not really like that.
Again, they have some teams have more resources. So Ganassi and Penske and people like that have more resources than Maya Shank, for example. But even so, you can pull the result out the bag,
Oh, absolutely. And then, of course, another talking point, because obviously we do a lot with Porsche, is Nick Tandy's moved over to Corvette. So it'll be interesting to see.
He's a 3-time defending champion. So basically, Corvette haven't won it the last 3 years because Tandy's been winning it in a Porsche. So they've now hoped to change that by nicking Nick Tandy. Yeah,
so it'll be really interesting to see. But in the GTLM class, you've also got BMW.
Yeah.
Got a couple of teams, haven't we, with BMW. There was only one Porsche in it, and that's a WeatherTech car, so it's actually not a factory car.
No.
They pulled out, didn't they? I don't really understand why, to be honest.
Because of the hypercar, perhaps, or the HDLM car, or whatever they're calling it. Perhaps they put the money into that. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Don't really know. It's interesting because obviously North America, the USA, is Porsche's biggest market. So you think they'd want to be there with their. And they'll be supporting the WeatherTech car, I guess.
I just wonder if they're going to. Obviously, there's lots of talk about them coming into F1. Whether they're going to do the synthetic fuel thing in Formula One.
Maybe so.
And then they'll do the hypercar. Oh, sorry, they're not in the hypercar.
No, whatever the the LMHD, whatever.
Yeah,
the Daytona Le Mans
car.
It's not called that, is it?
We'll get there in a minute.
Yeah.
So
they'll run that in IMSA, and
Yeah, so we'll see. Perhaps that's what they're putting all their efforts into at the moment. Because one thing with Porsche is they like to do things properly.
Because they've won Sebring more than anybody else, haven't they? A bit like Le Mans.
Absolutely, they have. Yeah, I was amazed. Actually, I've got the stats somewhere for all that. I was amazed how many times they've won.
They've won it like 19 times or something, and the next nearest was Ferrari.
Porsche have had 98 class wins.
That's nuts, isn't
98 class wins, more than double of anyone else. Which is quite something, and they've had 18 outright wins, which is more than anyone else. The next closest is Ferrari with 12. So so Porsche have
and Ferrari are not building a car to run in that, so they won't be. Porsche are.
Yeah.
Porsche running they're building a car for the top class.
Yeah.
Ferrari aren't.
Yeah. Be interesting to see. So also, which is another thing debuting, is the new Carrera Cup car. Now,
Yes.
not over here in the UK. So
no, we get it next year, I suppose.
Yeah, British Carrera Cup haven't got it, but Super Cup, also North American Super Cup, Carrera Cup. Sorry.
Yeah.
They've got the new car, and it
it's a
seems
rocket
to
ship,
be
isn't it?
incredibly fast.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? Really quick. So what's it? Prio, I think.
So Prio apparently set the fastest time in testing with it, didn't he? And
Yeah.
it was, it did the same time as the current GT3R,
Yeah.
which obviously is a much more trick car. So it's based on the same thing. It's a Carrera Cup car, but with more downforce and more trick suspension. Much more sophisticated car than a Cup car is.
Yeah.
So for the Cup car to go at the same lap times as the R, how quick's the R going to be?
Exactly.
Never mind the RSR.
So the big thing they've
Causing
changed.
confusion with all their letters, but yeah.
The big thing they've changed with the Cup car, well, they've made it a wide body now, haven't they?
Yeah.
Which allows, obviously, I don't know if they have, but bigger tyres, wider track.
Yeah.
Also, it's bigger rear wing, more aero, and of course more power as well. The other thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's over 500 brake now, whereas it was 470 or something, wasn't it? Before.
470 mark, yeah.
Before. So that would be interesting to see how that goes, and then we'll get it over here in the UK the following.
Quite a bit of kit.
So, absolutely, and if it's not that expensive either. I know that sounds mad, but
Depends how you look at it, really.
It's cheaper than buying a normal GT3.
yeah, I suppose so. Yeah,
So
it's a bit more than a 1991 Van Diemen. But,
yeah. Oh, I think it would be an awesome thing to
it
drive.
would, yeah. It would be incredible, yeah.
Anyway, I know we could spend all day talking about motorsport, but what's new in the road car world?
Well, as always, there's an arms race between car manufacturers, and one of the kind of benchmarks is obviously the production car lap record around the Nürburgring. So what Mercedes have done, because I think Porsche held it for a bit, McLaren have held it for a bit. The current holder up until fairly recently was the Lamborghini Aventador SVJ.
Yeah.
So what Mercedes have done, they've built essentially a Le Mans car with a number plate on it. Mm-hmm. So what they've done is they've built this thing that's got, was it 720 horsepower it's got? Yeah. But everything on it is adjustable.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. So you can whack the downforce up, you can put the camber, everything is completely adjustable. Suspension, it's got 9-stage traction control. So essentially they built this thing to break this record.
Yeah. And they have, haven't they?
And
they've done it in 6 minutes 43.
So just over a second quicker than Lambo did it.
Yeah.
But you think, I'm not sure where all this goes, really.
I guess
it looks a dog's dinner, the car does.
I like it, but
you always do.
I like Larry things, don't I, personally? So you like understated. I'm not so much in that boat.
Yes.
No, I think though it's so good for their image, isn't it? I mean, how many customers do we talk about? When the GT2 RS had the record, how many customers knew that?
Yeah, that's right.
They love it.
Yes.
So I think it's such a good status symbol for a manufacturer.
I get why they do it.
I think for that reason, and it shows what they can do with the cars.
Yeah.
I appreciate then it would be far too extreme to have that really on the road, but it does showcase what they can do. And they made everything adjustable on it, didn't
That's
they?
what I mean.
So
yeah, everything was. They got to the ring and then turned it into a Le Mans car.
Yeah, but does that mean then you can, as a client, adjust to whatever you want?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Make it really undrivable. Because you imagine trying to set that up yourself. It's all right having a Mercedes factory technition there.
Exactly. Yeah.
You get your
I'll just
spanners.
add a bit more here.
You get your spanners out and start messing with it, which is a lot better now.
Yeah, or not.
That's sorted it.
No, so I mean,
well, you couldn't. An average person, i.e., not Lewis Hamilton, is going to struggle with that car unless it's got lots of very, very trick electronics on it.
Yeah, and that's actually something we were going to discuss, isn't it? With our little driving section.
Yes, because we want to do a video on this, don't we, about all this, the technology of the stability management programs.
Absolutely. ESP is something that we discuss a lot with clients, isn't it? And there's it's become so good that people are taking it for granted and rely on it. And that is the worst thing you could possibly do.
Yes, and where it made its name was the little A-Class that fell over.
Yeah.
Because they say, we need to do something like this, and they put it on that to stop that falling over with the elk test.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing system, and of course, like everything else, it's developed and got better and better.
Yeah. Oh, and trust me, it's much better to have these things than not, that's for sure.
But it can't overcome the laws of physics.
That's the big thing that people forget, is they're exceptional what these systems can do. I mean, gosh, there's like over 5 systems to each.
There's a lot of subsections with it, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very impressive what these things can do, and they really can sometimes get us out of trouble. But the moment you try and defy physics, then you're on your own.
Yeah.
And it won't be able to. It's like if you went out in snow on summer tyres, all these ESP would be working away like mad. But if the tyres have no traction, then it doesn't matter. It's almost redundant. It can't do anything because it's not on the right footwear. So there's always limitations, isn't there?
But in normal, what you might call normal use, it's an incredible system.
Oh, absolutely.
And I would never buy a car that didn't have it on. You know, it's
I don't think you could now, to be fair.
It'd be difficult.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, we get a lot of clients sort of say, "Oh, I switch it off," and actually, you know, even on track, you really don't need to. They're so sophisticated now that I mean, they allow a little bit of slip and movement before anything activates. So there's an element of the car being able to dance around truly on its edge before any systems kick in anyway, and that it's become that sophisticated now. And then it is there. I wouldn't call it a safety net because, as we said, it won't necessarily save you.
No.
But it will slow things down. It will give you more time as a driver to react to a situation, won't it?
It
but
will.
The big thing to remember is you're the one still in control.
Yes, and the other thing is, if you turn it off, there's a train of thought that says you might be invalidating your insurance by doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's a bit of a grey area.
Absolutely.
So you switched off the manufacturer's safety system and then crashed.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Give us that.
Yeah, exactly.
Give us hand putting it in
so
the bin.
perhaps we should mention a little bit about. Do you want to just?
Yeah. So
we don't want to bore you to tears.
No,
with this,
just the different bits within it,
can
really.
get a bit complicated, but yeah, go on.
So obviously we have ABS, anti-lock brakes. So the two things that we started out with were anti-lock brakes and traction control. So the car starts to wheel spin, it would cut the throttle. Bosch then just got cleverer and cleverer with it, really. So what you've ended up with then is a stability program. So in other words, if the car starts to slide, going to a skid, what the ABS will do is it can brake individual wheels and bring itself back into a stable state, which obviously as a driver you can't do. You haven't got 4 brake pedals and 4 feet, so you can't brake individual wheels and bring yourself back straight. So that's the really clever trick bit of stability programs, really, is the ability to do that. So as the car starts to yaw, it knows that. It knows, it has lots of sense in it that know what direction you're trying to go in and what speed the car's moving around at. So it think, oh, okay, there's yaw developing here that I don't really know about, so I'm going to put individual brakes on and bring that back under control. There's lots of systems within that as well, where it moves brake force around and.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
it's amazing what they
incredible
can do,
systems.
Isn't it? And that's the thing is, it's you really want to not switch that off. You know.
No, exactly.
Have that there.
I mean, there are elements of it you
assist
can't turn off. You can't turn off the ABS.
Absolutely.
You can't turn off things like the the brake assist bit.
Yeah.
All brake assist does is it looks at how fast you've moved the brake pedal. So if your foot whacks the brake pedal, the system sees that and thinks, and it starts to ramp the brake pressure up and it takes over.
Yeah.
Because I remember the original Cayenne doing stuff with that at Millbrook, and you go along the mile straight at Millbrook, and how fast you stop that car depending on how big and strong you were. So if you're a 5 foot tall,
so if you're me,
if
actually,
you're a small,
strong legs, so
slightly built person, you couldn't stop the car as quickly as Eddie Hall could. You know,
which is
simple. But now everybody can stop the same.
Absolutely. No, it's amazing when we go through it. You know, with manufacturers, with clients, and really explain about some of this stuff. It does impress people, doesn't it? What you can do,
it's
even
amazing,
in a true emergency. You know, brake and avoid, that kind of stuff. What the cars can do really does shock people.
I remember again at Millbrook in I can't remember what car it was in, going onto the steering pad at Millbrook, where you could go onto that about 40 miles an hour, take your feet off everything, and do a lane change. And of course, with the system off, it just spun. If you didn't catch it, it would spin. Put the system on, and it just went through as if nothing was happening. It was so subtle in the way it worked and so fast in the way it reacted.
So it's just such a fine balance, isn't it, of utilising this stuff, but without getting complacent with it.
Yeah,
that's kind of
it's there as an aid.
Yeah,
it's not there as something to use and
absolutely
as a matter of course.
Absolutely, and that's the thing that people need to remember, because it's just so easy to get complacent, because these cars are so good and these systems are amazing what they can do, but they can't defy physics.
No.
And that's where, you know, we've both been in situations where we've gone off the road with clients and things, and it you know, and the cars and the cars are amazing.
Once you're upside down and flying through the air, the systems don't work quite so.
Touch wood, I've not had that. You have. I've not had that. Thank God.
Yeah.
I was there when it happened, but I wasn't in the car, thankfully. No, but exactly, and you know, when that happened, that was a very modern car, wasn't it? It was, and it wasn't actually.
Yeah, the airbags worked; they were fine.
But it wasn't.
I'll tell you what changed the race. Like, what made me think with that car was it had a glass roof, which again is quite common now. And of course, upside down, you've now got to lean or kneel on a load of broken glass. And I thought, not sure that's.
Yeah, I guess
it's been quite thought out in the way that they thought, you know.
Well, yeah.
You know,
just don't end up on the roof, I suppose.
Yeah.
Don't end up in that situation, and then that's not a problem.
I didn't intend to.
But yeah, so I mean, we'll do a video on this at some point.
Yeah, we've got a video in plan for that, haven't we? Yeah.
But we'll do a video on on ESP and just an overview of the different elements, and we'll try and actually demonstrate some of that.
Well, we can isolate each individual part and then demonstrate it. That's what we'll tell you. Everybody
just so
understands.
people just get a little bit of an idea of actually what their cars can do.
Yeah.
And also that it's normal, because some of the systems when they activate can sound alarming.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't sound very nice. And I notice with clients quite often then they're likely to stop what they're currently doing when actually they need to do it. So it's something we'll go into and look at, but it's a bit difficult to talk about it in great detail on here, isn't it? Just because it ends up getting a bit much for people, I would say, including us. So also then we've got another little section, haven't we?
We've got our little fantasy world.
Yeah, which is
that we started
you've
to try
called
and
it,
do.
which I'm not sure I like fantasy world or fantasy section. It sounds
well, it depends on how your mind works, I suppose.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm
quite
sounds
happy
a bit weird. So yeah, as we've said before, we're just trying to do an interactive bit for people so they can write in and contact us on social media and join in on this bit.
Yes.
So what is it this week?
So I decided this week. So it was Lottery Win Garage last week. So this week I thought, if you could race in any series, no matter what it is, anywhere in the world this year, what would it be?
Okay, have I got to answer that now?
What's the first thing that springs to mind?
Le Mans.
Okay, what World Endurance WEC?
Yeah. I'll do the 24-hour Le Mans in a Porsche, in the top pro class. I'll suddenly have a super license, a gold, and I'll be able to do it. Well, honestly, for me, that's always Le Mans is what started my kind of whole dream and love for motorsport. And it's always been and still is the dream thing for me to go and do is go and race at Le Mans.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a Porsche,
me
because
too, I have to say.
I think just Porsche, I'm very close to that. If not, it would be a Corvette, a yellow Corvette.
Yellow Corvette, a front engine one or a mid engine one?
Well, that's the thing, is obviously in the past it was always a front engine one, but I guess I'm not that I've driven one, but I'm assuming...
Well, 911's a mid engine now, RSRs, aren't they? The ones that run at Le Mans.
Exactly, I'm assuming mid engine Corvette is the way to go, so I would say that if that's going to be faster and I have more chance of doing well, then yes, let's go with that.
I think I'd agree. WEC. I'd like to do it in a prototype.
Yeah, I see that attraction.
But failing that, it'd be a 911.
Yeah, because I have to say, like an LMP2 car, or the LMP ones, it's going to be big again, isn't it?
Yes.
Forwards, but it kind of had unfortunately a bit of a flat era for a few years, hasn't it? But LMP2 I think would be mega. There's loads of cars in there.
Yeah. You'd have a good pro with you, and
absolutely.
It's wet and dark, off you go. I'll be over there.
Yeah. So for anybody else as well, let us know.
What you think.
It was great reading some of what you mentioned last week. So yeah, and we will start to mention some of this more on the show. So what's coming up then next week?
So obviously Sebring is the key thing, I think. Sebring 12 hours. So we'll have a little talk about that next week.
Yeah, I'd like to do a bit of a roundup on it.
A little roundup, and we'll do a little bit of a preview on the F1 weekend, because that's coming up next week.
Yeah, looking forward
so
to
we'll
that
record this
with
on a Friday morning. So Friday morning we might have an idea of what's gone on in first practice, so we can
a bit more
have
of
a
an
little
idea.
look at that. And,
sure. Because I think the at Sebring, I think the qualifying is on at the moment. So so we'll be able to do a roundup of that, and then we'll also talk about the new Golf as well. So the
new
Mark
Golf.
8.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the Golf, as I think many people are, aren't they, that love their cars.
Yeah.
It's such an understated but brilliant all-round car, isn't it?
Yes.
But there's quite a few changes with the Mark 8, so we'll have a little bit of a chat about that. And we've also got the
Lamborghini Shan.
Hybrid.
Which Chris Harris tramped around somewhere in the other week.
The first hybrid Lamborghini. So so we'll talk about that, and obviously some driving tips and things as well, to round up the show. But any questions, again, please feel free to get in touch on any of the social media accounts through Veloce Driving, and let us know where you'd like to race.
Yes.
That's
Good stuff.
great. Thanks.
Lovely. Thank you. Bye.